Bruchim Abaim. Today we're going to begin, before our Gemara Shiur of Masechet Megillah, we're going to do the daily Chafetz Haim. So here's the book. It is the concise Chafetz Haim, a page a day. It organized it from Aleph Tishrei, and it goes each day. I reviewed the book last year, and it was unbelievable because besides it being very clear and concise in English, it gives you unbelievable insight on how we're supposed to speak and deal with one another. And also, even more importantly, I want to bring this up. I recently, not recently, a while back, I was dealing with a Jewish buyer on a real estate deal. And back and forth, I ended up not selling him the property, and for one reason or another, because he couldn't come through with the money or whatever it was. And back and forth, he tried to work on another deal that a friend of mine had. And one way or another, I informed my friend, just be aware, I was in contract with him and he couldn't come through with the money. And he called me, he said to me, you spoke Lashon Hara? I said, absolutely, I did not. He said to me, why not? I said to him, because I finished the Sefer. I gave him the page, I gave him the number. I told them you fell under the category where I was permitted to warn my friend in a proper way. And I did. I informed him that you already locked up a property for a few months. You didn't come through with the money. So it was just informing him. It was not in any way derogatory. Why is that important? Because the Chafetz Haim was known that he would speak a lot, the Chafetz Haim. The Chafetz Haim would always say a lot of things. And people used to always tell him, I don't get it. If you can't speak Lashon Hara, you probably have very limited words. He said, no. He said to me, now that I wrote the book, because you can speak about anything you want. He goes, because now you know where the limitations are. So we're going to start this page one. It's like a 3 minute a day, and then we'll continue in our Gemara. So he begins blessing the Borei Olam, that he distinguished us from the nations of the world by giving us a Torah, as opposed to the other nations of the world who just have the Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. And he also gave us Eretz Yisrael. He gave us our own land. And all these things that Hashem gave us, Torah and Eretz Yisrael, was for one reason. Why did he give us all these things? So we can do the mitzvot. Imagine if Hashem gave us a Torah without a place to do it. What would happen? What would happen to the Jewish people all these years? If you look around the room here, I think we have like 7, 8 countries that we all came from. So without a land, it was difficult. Hashem gave us both. He gave us the Torah. He gave us Eretz Yisrael. He gave us the mitzvot. And he did this all to benefit us. Now, not only did he give us the Torah, but he also gave us Nevi'im. The Nevi'im to teach us Midot, Musar, and how to behave. At the end of the second Beit HaMikdash, we were stuck with a problem. What was the problem at the end of the Beit HaMikdash? That there was an issue of Sinat Hinam. And Sinat Hinam, the foundation of Sinat Hinam, is that people speak bad about each other. This problem, just so you know, that caused the second Churban HaBayit, is the biggest problem we have today. Sinat Hinam is the biggest issue. In fact, so much so the Hachamim said, if we would have fixed it, God's going to bring the Geulah. It's really our Sinat Hinam. And our Sinat Hinam, from what I, over the years, have seen, because Baruch Hashem, I went to Gan Yisrael Chabad camp. I'm from a Syrian community. I was born in Brooklyn. I go to Deal. I'm here in Miami. All these things have shown me one thing. What was the source of Sinat Hinam that I've seen? It's really lack of education. The only reason why we are not respectful to other cultures within the Jewish nation is that we don't really understand them. And to us, it's awkward. And awkward because they're weird, we're weird, not weird, or Hatz v'Shalom, something like that. And it becomes, no, we don't. But the more that I've been fortunate to meet more and more people, and Yossi Yemenite, and you're from the Moroccan community, and Baruch Hashem, now that I'm able to understand your culture more, learning the differences and nuances, I have a lot more respect. Doesn't mean I'm going to go and sit and wear a Yemenite robe or eat chelbe on Friday night or schug, but at the same time, it has removed a lot more of, I don't know if you would call it sinat hinam or just that uncomfortness. And so Baruch Hashem, The first page, what does he tell you? Tells you this was the issue of the Chorban Abayit. If we just knock out this Sinat Hinam problem, we'll be all set. And so that's what he puts there for day one. And so we'll end with that, and we'll begin our Gemara. Masechet Megillah. Okay, we are right before Amar Rav Shemen bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yohanan. Okay, so we'll quickly go right into the Gemara. We already did the Mishnah for almost 10 days now. We did the Mishnah, we did with all the Mefarshim. So let's go quickly to the Gemara. The Gemara starts Lior Megillah Nikret B'Yud Aleph Minalan. Say and explain. And then Yossi, you're going to continue from Amar Rav Shemen. All right, so be ready. First say it in Hebrew or Aramite and explain it to me, and we'll go word by word. Megillah Nikret B'Yud Aleph. Okay, what? First, it's a statement. What is that? That's the Mishnah. They're repeating. The Megillah is said on the 11th. Minalan. How do you know that? Now, before we continue, Lior, I told you yesterday. Before I even go into the Gemara, you should ask that question. How do I know 11, 12, and 13? Meaning, I know before I opened up, I knew that we read it on the 14th and the 15th. That you told me year over year. So how do I know the day of the 11th? Okay, minalan. Okay, kedebe'inan, read. Okay, minalan kedebe'inan lememar lekaman. Okay, so from where it says we intend to state. We're going to state as follows where it's from. Hachamim. Okay, so the Hachamim, how do we know that that you could do it early? So they said the Hachamim, they allowed them that leniency to come earlier. Why? Okay, so the Hachamim said we're going to allow them a few days earlier so they can bring water and food. Why? Because we said that the villagers were in the rural areas. That's where they had the spring water, the mineral water. I guess where they had all their food and the crops, and they brought them into the city. Now, this I mentioned to you yesterday. Rashi's opinion about this was different. Rashi said they didn't have a reader. Remember, Rabbeinu Hananel said they didn't have a Sefer Torah, didn't have a minyan. So and then the Hachamim here in the Gemara said another reason, so that you can bring the food. Why am I telling you all this? Because when you go back to the 6 cases of the Mishnah, you're going to re-ask yourself a question. So if days fall out on a Thursday where Kefarim read, how did we solve bringing Mayim Mazon Achahim? Had we solved the minyan problem in the Sefer Torah, but had we solved this Hachamim interpretation? Because if they're coming in the same day, how did we do this? And we also said yesterday that even though they're going to read earlier, they're not going to do the mitzvot of Purim earlier. The mitzvot of Purim is always going to be Yudalid. Just the reading is going to be earlier. Okay. Anan achi ka'amnina. Say it. What does that mean?
This is what we have to ask.
This is what I meant to say. Anan anan from the word in Arabic ana mean hachi ka'amnina. Ka'amnina from the word say over, like amar. This is what I meant to say. Mikedi takninhu. Stop right there. Okay, good. Mikedi, let's see. Kullehu anshe takninhu. So what does the Gemara say, Yossi? That by the way, the 14th and the 15th, you saw that in the Megillah. He goes, but by the way, the same people who instituted 14 and 15, they instituted 11, 12, and 13 as well. Good. The Salkada'atach. Okay, what does that mean? In some words will stop their phrases. The Salkada'atach means if you're going to think. You can see that a lot in the Gemara. The Salkada'atach, if you're going to think this, anshe tikun. Okay, explain that if you're going to think
that they did the tikkun on Yudal and Tetvav, they established a 14-15 essentially.
If you thought that, Atu Rabbanan Va'akre Takanta Tetakinu Anshe Knesset Hagedullah. So the question is as follows: that if you're going to say and think that Anshe Knesset Hagedullah they did Yudal and Tetvav, right? If you're going to assume this. Could it be that the rabbis came after the Anshe Knesset Gedolah and did it? Yossi, why is that not good? Why can I say that rabbis came after the Anshe Knesset Gedolah? They made a Beit Din and they assumed it. What does the Gemara say? Read it. We have a Mishnah, the Hatenan. That can't be possible. Why not? The Hatenan. Okay. Very good. So that we have a Mishnah. The source of this Mishnah is in Eduyot 1:5. Okay, that's what the Mishnah. The Mishnah is unbelievable. Mishnah says, "En beit din yachol levatel beit din havero ela im ken gadol b'chuma u'b'minyan." This is a rule that you have to use it for the rest of your life. Never going to change. That's why we don't have beit dinim today, being okir things of the previous generation. This comes into like a multitude of halacha later on. I'll give you an example. In the Syrian community, we don't accept converts. It's well known. In the Syrian community of Brooklyn, of Deal, New York, of Deal, New Jersey, Brooklyn, New York, Deal, New Jersey, one or two synagogues here in Miami, and Panama, Argentina. No converts. How did they be okir something that's in the Torah? So first, Rabbi Kassin, alav shalom, had a stroke of Ruach HaKodesh when he did this. Now, he wasn't the first to do it. As a side note, he wasn't the first. I believe it was Rabbi Shaul Dabach from Argentina. There's a book called Divrei Shaul. I think you could find it today under Otzara Chochmah. This rabbi, when he originally did it in Argentina, not in New York. New York was you can call it almost a copycat. It was the second place it was done. When it was done there initially, he came up with a lot of battles. Don't think it was so simple. The book actually explains what happened when he did this in the 1900s, early, how he went around to different batei dinim, he had to get permissions, rabbis had to sign. It wasn't that simple that you could just tell people, you're not going to accept converts. Now, at the same time, we were not okid, and I mean we in the sense that we accepted this. We're not okid. Why? Okay. No, I'll tell you why. Because we totally love converts. We encourage them. We're just saying we don't want them living in our community side by sides for one reason. Because the other communities that have been in the Western countries, Argentina, United States, Europe, what has happened with converts is that over the course of time, if the gate is opened, what ends up happening is that suddenly the young boys in their 20s come home and they bring home a beautiful Irish girl, let's say, with blonde hair and blue eyes. She's never seen that in the Syrian community. Suddenly he wants to get married to a girl like that. And it was a problem. And what happened earlier is that when they came from Syria in the 1900s, who came initially? The men. They didn't send the women. And when they came here, they weren't other females for them to find of their culture that understood how to make their food and understood their language. And that's where the initial issue came, by closing up the ability to take the girls from here, to convert them just for the sake of marriage, mind you, because a legitimate convert is mutar at all. They forced them to have to take girls from the community from the Middle Eastern countries, or from our Ashkenaz brothers and sisters, and
but they couldn't make like a takana. They have to do this, or they have to do this. Why not accept it? I know in Brooklyn, I know somebody that he was very will convert, and they didn't let him go on the Torah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you something. I'll tell you a few things on that. So I want to, as we finish on that, they were not okid, because I told you the Mishnah right here tells you can in beit din. So what happened? We're not okid. We just tell them, hey, listen, you want to be a convert? That's great. You just can't come to our schools and our shuls.
Oh,
no, it's not. No, it's not. But so I answer you, Yossi. We don't live in, like I told you, Wichita, Kansas. We live in Brooklyn, New York. You can go to an Ashkenaz yeshiva right down the road. You don't have to come to ours. And you want to pray in a shul, there's an Ashkenaz shul right there, or it's another Sephardi. So it's not that we told them, hey, listen, we're leaving you hanging. We're telling you, listen, just don't come to these shuls, because this is where we are. We love you. We respect you. We just want now. By the way, this has saved the Syrian community from having pretty much a zero assimilation rate.
I understand this
point. But what we're answering something even more bigger is that you can't be okid the beit din. You can't be. There's already, and by the way, it's not even a beit din. This is a mitzvah from the Torah. It's not even a beit din. I'll give you something even more. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. You can't be okay to any mitzvot in the Torah. But Rabbi Mansour said it best. He said, if you look in Jewish history, in the time of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, converts were not allowed. People don't know this. And this was during the time of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech. Why? Because David HaMelech was an awesome warrior. He would go fight every battle, knocking everyone down. Shlomo HaMelech was making peace around the world before the and before the United Nations. He did it better than anybody else. And everyone wanted to be Jewish. Imagine that. Imagine having Eretz Yisrael, the Beit HaMikdash, Beit HaBechira. Everything is going good. Economy is great. Meaning, this is great. So they closed up the door for converts. They said, "Listen, we don't want to accept converts." And if David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech saw that there was a good reason for this, and they did that for a different purpose. They did it because they figured people that would convert would want to come for the glory of Am Yisrael, not for the true glory of the Borei Olam. They closed it up. This was done for a different reason. This was done to prevent assimilation. And by the way, 100 years after the takana has been in place, assimilation is close to 0.0%. While if you look at the Yemenite communities, you look at the Persian communities, the Moroccan communities, this issue of the converts is a big problem that has never gone away.
Why?
Because what happens is, on the first generation, if it's not fully vetted, what happens is the converts end up getting married and they end up having Jewish names. So they end up having Rothman, let's say. And Rothman, he married a girl that was converted, but she didn't have a proper conversion. Okay, so she didn't have a proper conversion. She went through a reform or conservative, or she converted for a purpose other than for the purpose of Yahadut, for a purpose of marriage. Now, you don't know that because this guy Rothman's son is in yeshiva, and he has the last name Rothman, and he had a Brit Milah, and he went through the whole process. And next thing you know, he's 18 years old, going to Israel, studying in yeshiva, and he's going out with girls. And there's more than some. That's why I love hanging out around the Beit Din with the rabbis there. The stories and cases you hear, it grew me a couple of extra hairs on my bald head. I'm not kidding. The things that you hear in the Beit Din, it's unbelievable. And when you hear these type of cases, there was another case of someone that wasn't even Jewish. He was in yeshiva for 18 years. And Hamavajah had to do, it was a whole story. I don't remember all the details. I want to tell you is that this is a serious matter. It's a very serious matter. We're in Galut. It's not that, even something as simple as knowing the veracity of lineage, And so the Syrian community, which is really a breed of Lebanese, Egyptian, Turkish, Moroccan, Iraqi, and Kamishli, and pretty much the greater Middle Eastern area, they took upon themselves in the community like this. And observing it, one would have to say, Rabbi Kassin and Ham Shaul, the Bah, I believe, from the Baal Divrei Shaul, they had a stroke of Ruach HaKodesh that pretty much protected the entire community. And you look around today, and I'll show you another little secret about these communities, the Syrian community. I live here in Miami now for 3.5 years. I came here really for a short time, and it's been extended a little bit. And Baruch Hashem, we've been able to introduce a lot of Torah classes and programs, and going against the current a lot to try to do this. But one thing I noticed is there's missing that extra level of kedusha, of something. And I noticed that after traveling to LA, Chicago, Miami, and all around United States, the learning of the Torah and the kedusha that exists in the Syrian community and in the greater Syrian community, I mean, even amongst our brothers, Ashkenazim, Hasidim, that whole group in that city there in Brooklyn, New York, New Jersey, is second to none. It's second to none. And I believe part of the boost is that extra kedusha that they've done with the Gerim. It's another extra boost. Now, of course, this is controversial, no lens, but you know what? Baruch Hashem, we have a strong community. It's that lineage has kept strong. But we have to answer this Mishnah. How can a Beit Din come? It was not okay. They were not okay. We accept them, just not here. And
not accept them. You say accept them.
We accept them.
If we tell the person, okay, you can be convert, but don't come on the Torah. Don't do this.
No, we didn't say don't come. No, has v'shalom. We didn't say don't come on my Torah. You can go on a Torah. I'll even stand up for you. Well, I'll come to an Ashkenaz shul. I'll stand up for the ger. And if he's a true ger, go live in Eretz Israel. Go make aliyah to Eretz Israel. Go there. He can marry another convert, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong on it in that capacity. And B'ezrat Hashem, when Eliyahu Navi Zachur Latov is going to come in a short time, he'll clarify for us what would be the further action. But I believe this is going to be a big zechut for Am Yisrael, that there is one community that did this. Listen, you say, I'm not wearing a shtreimel. I'm not going to sit and wear that type of garment in the summer, especially not in Miami, especially not in Brooklyn. It's not my culture. But the fact that we have a group amongst Am Yisrael that still kept that culture from Eastern Europe, to me, has a lot of value. There's something to that. Doesn't mean I'm going to go do it. Now, one thing, I was born into this. I didn't sit and choose before I came down to earth. Okay, let me be born to this community. I was born here. Now that I'm born here and I've observed it, I can tell you this thing of the edict it's Kodesh Kodashim. And it's something that it's worth fighting big battles over.
And it's justified means for sure.
Yeah, and even those who don't agree, if you sit down with them and they're sane enough and you explain and you clarify like we've discussed here, they'd probably agree to some capacity. If they don't, it's okay. Everyone's entitled to their 2 cents. Okay, so we explained this Mishnah and why this Mishnah wouldn't be permanent. Remember I told you, Lior, when we're learning this Gemara, we're not here to finish, we're here to learn Torah. And anything that's going to bring us closer to the Borei Olam to do that, we're going to do it. We're not doing Daf Yomi, Amud Yomi, or even line Yomi. We're just doing Torah Yomi. Okay. Ela Peshita Takinu. Okay, so the Gemara tells us it must mean, based on this Mishnah, that all the days of the 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 were all Anshe Kezek Gedulah. Okay, now the Gemara asks a question. Okay, so Gemara has a question now. I got it. I agree. Prove me. Is there a remez? Now, it's interesting. It says a remez. It didn't say like a pasuk or whatever, but we're going to pull up a pasuk. It says, "Give me a remez. Give me a remez." How did the Anshe Kezek Gedulah takninu? What did I tell Yossi the other day? I said, this is unbelievable, because it tells me that even the Anshe Kezek Gedulah, they can't just pull things out of the hat. They got to, even something as serious as this, they got to have a remez. And I told you when we were learning Rashi that whenever I try to learn Rashi, I try to assume to myself first, because I like to research the documents, what documents did the Rashi have in order for him to come up with his Perush? Rashi, we know, I told you, he had the Torah, Nevi'im, Ketubim. He had the Mishnayot. He had probably some Bavlis. He had some Yerushalayim. He didn't have all of them. He could not have had all of them because they were all difficult. Now, why is it that all our Gemariyot have Rashi? Because we lost a lot of Masechtot. They were burned plenty of times. I was studying Rav Sa'ad Yagon, the history of him, and he talks about Harambam and how during the time of Harambam they were summoned the youth. When we say that they burned his books, who were they? It wasn't. There were disagreements amongst some of the works. And by the way, not only Harambam, the more that you read history, you'll see many of the books that today we hold tight under our arms, when they were printed or when they came out, rocks were thrown more than anything else. But the course of history has shown us that those who threw the rocks are not around anymore, and the book is. And so is the legacy of the Torah. And when Rashi studied, Rashi only had a limited set of books. Now, Harambam, there was a youth that burned some of his books. Rabbeinu Yonah Megorandi, who wrote Sha'arei Teshuvah, was one of the youth. Now, came after Harambam, but actually, I think they might have been a couple of years alive at the same time. I don't know exactly. I can check it, but I believe I know one was 1,000, one was 930. I have to double check the times. But what's interesting is that where did all this happen? This happened in Spain, right? Now, when this happened in Spain, and the Christians started seeing that the Jews were burning books of the other Jews, that wasn't a good thing. What happened? Later on, I think it was King Louis IV at the time in France. He saw them burning books. He said, Jews burning books. Jews are the people of the book. They're sitting and they're burning their own scrolls. He said, if you're burning your scrolls, he goes, I'm burning all your scrolls. And King Louis said, all right, in Provence, it was not France at the time, and by the way, Provence was the home of Rashi. It was the home later of Tosafot. It was a center point of the yeshivot. He said, listen, you Jews burning the other Jews' books, I'm burning all the books. And he burned pretty much majority of all of the handwritten text. Now, it's not like today we can go print other Metivta or Vilna Gaon or Art Scrolls. Every book was handwritten. You know, the loss of a handwritten book, if you don't have a copy, is the information is gone. It's not like, okay, can we get it again? We're talking France in the year 1000. And this was the mistake. And the Borei Olam said, I didn't hear it from the Borei Olam, but the Hachamim said, the Borei Olam said, you're willing to go burn your own brother's books of Torah, Harambam, the Nesher HaGadol, put everything up. I don't need it all. You guys will learn yourself a lesson. And everything else went up. And you know what? It's something we have to learn. So obviously, you know, the respect of Talmidei Chachamim, but the respect of Torah that is legitimate Torah, that maybe it's something, it's not your custom, it's not your culture. We don't burn books. Jewish people don't burn books. But the only time that I heard a rabbi say to burn a book, what was that time? My father, many years ago, I traveled with him to Morocco quite a few times. And one time when we were in Morocco, we loved going to the souk, and we like to look for awkward things. I like to look for Jewish artifacts. I like to look for old books. I try to ask them, you take anything from the Jews? You have any Sifrei Torah? I always ask them, and lo and behold, more so than not, I find things. I find like a pointer of the Sefer Torah. I find pieces of scrolls. You know, always. They have them. They tell them they know the Jewish people have it. Suddenly they have it, and the price goes up. Okay, so we were there, and he bought a book. But he bought a book that was written in Hebrew. So we took it back home. He started reading it, and we noticed it wasn't it was a Jewish book, but it was a book of Kishuf, written in Hebrew in Morocco. And so my father took it to Rabbi Maxi Maslaton of Ketet Zion in Brooklyn. He saw the book. He told him this. It was written in Hebrew. Had shemot in it. And it said said a couple of interesting things. Most of the stuff were like sigulot and stuff, but it was clearly not a Jewish authored book. He said, burn it. And I remember my father, was the only time I saw my father take a book. He put it into like a little pot, put it outside, and he burned it. It was the whole book. He said you can't have, these things have to be removed. And we removed them. So that's what you see. But obviously, Jewish people don't burn books. That was an interesting thing. Okay, so the Gemara is asking us, Hecharamiza. Yeah.
One time, I see in the mall, outside the mall, big pallets of books. And giving away free books. Look like nice book like this.
Yeah.
A nice cover.
Hardcover.
And everybody free. Okay, let me take. Everybody start taking books, and I see pallets. They bring pallets. They take out from a truck. I bring it home, and my uncle told me, "What is this book?" They look at the name. Said, "This is you can have these books in your house."
No, I don't know, it's like New Testament or something.
Yeah, he told me you can. You have to burn it. You have to throw it out of the house.
Yeah. So I remember.
See that? People don't know. A lot of people say, "Okay, book, let me have shika."
You see a book in Hebrew, nice. Okay, take it home.
So I'll give you a story from Rabbi Miller years ago. Sam Gindi used to take us on Friday night. I used to pray by Rabbi Mansour on Avenue R and Ocean Parkway on the corner. And Sam Gindi was very close to Rabbi Avigdor Miller. So we would walk to Rabbi Avigdor Miller, and after Arvit, he would give us like 10 or 15 minutes, a small schmooze inside of like a little corner room by the steps. But Rabbi Miller used to live on Ocean Parkway Avenue R. He lived on top of his Beit Midrash. He had a Beit Midrash downstairs. The Beit Midrash wasn't big. It was probably double the size of this, and looked about 150 years older in quality than this place looked. And it was like, it was falling apart on the first floor. It wasn't really in good condition. And the rabbi lived upstairs. Rabbi Miller lived upstairs. And what I say all the time with Rabbi Miller, from that little Beit Midrash on that Avenue R Ocean Parkway, changed the world. How many students, how many Talmidim, how many Gedolim went through there and learned and got inspired? People got inspired from that little place. And I always say, the small Batei Midrash is where the Kedusha is. It's always. The moment they go and they supercharge it with a huge structure, it loses that. I don't know what it is. It loses that feeling, that thing. And Rabbi Miller was there, and I remember one time he told us a story on Friday night where there was a kid. He saw that there was a missionary going around our community on Ocean Parkway Avenue S.R. giving out like these little pamphlets, with Hatzi Hebrew, Hatzi Anglit, yani to trick people, the holidays are coming, and they put a picture of Yeshu inside with a cross and a salibet. And so he said the little boy saw it. He saw the book. He was like in cartoons. He's like, wow, it's so nice, everything. The guy's like, oh, you like it? Yeah. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm giving them out. He's like, let me give you a hand. You got a lot of books on your hand. He said, come, let me take some. He took from him all the books. He said, okay, I'm going to give them out. He took them with this guy, went to the corner, to the garbage can, he threw them all out. He said, had a good day. So here's a little tactic. Next time you see missionaries, you tell them, I want to give you a hand. You collect their books from them, tell them, I'll help you. I'll give them out from door to door. And then you throw them in the trash. Okay, so the Gemara says, Hecha remiza. How do we know that the Anshe Knesset Megillah, where was their source? Okay, Yossi, begin. This is the first statement of a rabbi in Masechet Megillah. Yes.
אמר השמן ברבא, אמר רבי יוחנן, אמר קרא לקיים את ימי הפורים האלה בזמניהם. זמנים הרבה תקנו להם. Okay, very good. So אמר רב שמן בר אבא, אמר רבי יוחנן. Okay, one second. Before we continue, Yossi, something interesting that came up here I want to ask you. It says here, אמר רב שמן בר אבא, אמר רבי יוחנן. Why did it tell me אמר רב שמן? And then when it didn't tell me Amar Rav Yohanan, why did it tell me Rabbi Yohanan? I'm going to give you a little bit of a klal that comes up a lot in the Gemara. I don't know if it's a rule that's 100%, but every klal, the kol klal, yes, yoseh min klal. So what's one of the klalim? If you see the word Rav, what does it tell me? It tells me he was living or teaching Torah or born in Bavel, in Galut. If it says Rabbi, it means it's why? Because who was a Rabbi? Rabbi comes from Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. They had smicha. Smicha was given in Eretz Yisrael. They didn't have the same smicha big galut in Bavel. So whenever you see right away Amar Rav, I want you to already assume it's coming from Bavel. Now what's interesting is it seems here this rabbi Amar Rav Shemin, Amar Rabbi Yohanan. It means he learned it from Rabbi Yohanan was in Israel. Why is that? They traveled. They went back and forth. They always would go from one place to another and study. And so it's quite possible. Rav Shemin bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yohanan, he could have learned it from him, he could have been there. Okay? He says, Amar Kera, it says in the Megillah, Lekayem et yemei hapurim ha'ele bizmanehem. Let's read the whole pasuk. Yossi, read the entire pasuk for me. It's on the side, Torah Ora Shalem. לקיים את ימי הפורים האלה בזמניהם, כאשר קיים עליהם מרדכי היהודי ואסתר המלכה, וכאשר קיימו על נפשם ועל זרעם דברי הצומות וזעקתם.
Very good. Okay. So the pasuk tells us that they did the days of Purim, Yemei HaPurim. Yemei already tells me it's multiple days. Ele bizmanehem, in their times. So it's plural. Zmanim harbe tiknu lahem. So from that pasuk, I see the plurality of the word zman. Therefore, there must be a lot of times. Okay? Let's continue. Hai mibaye le gufe. Now, the Gemara says, yeah, but hi, this mibaye le gufe, we need it for the goof. What do you mean the goof? We need it for the text itself, the main text, the body of the text. What do you mean? I need bizmanehim for 14 and 15. You forgot that there was 2 days? Regardless, I need the plurality. I need those 2 days. So how did I know that this was going to be further for the other ones? Imken lema kera zeman. Okay, so why didn't it just tell me zman? Why zman? Why zman?
That's a time it would have sufficed to just say that as opposed to go and go out of your way.
Why would zman be okay for a holiday that has 2 days? Why would that be okay? Lior, why is that okay?
Because one, you enumerate the 2 days.
Yeah, but zman is single, it's not plural. So why would zman be good? Think about this.
Well, we think every time we even mentioned Purim, for example, zman simchatenu, like it's.
Okay. Okay, zman simchatenu. Okay, and Sukkot is not 1 day.
Yeah,
it's not 1 day. Okay, very good. So that's exactly what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying the zman is its time, which means the time doesn't necessarily mean one. It means the 14 is on the 14, the 15 on the 15, because I can't read Shushan Purim on Yudal. I can't read Yudal on Shushan. So there's a Zman. There are times. So the Gemara says, Le Makera Zman. So what would the Pasuk should have said? Lekayim Temeh HaPurim HaEle Bazman. And saying Yemeh HaPurim HaEle, Yemeh meaning multiple, Bazman. So,
refer to them, specific set of days.
okay,
That's good.
very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Mai Zmanehim. So the Gemara was trying to prove that the word Zman could have fit properly. Why Zmanehim? So Gemara says, read Yossi, Im ken lema kera zman.
אם כן, למה קרא זמן?
Mai Zmanehim.
זמניהם, זמנים טובה.
Tuva, Zman Tuva. So the Gemara tried to say, we'll use Zman because they have their separate days. So why does it say Zmanehim? Because it must mean that there's more than just the Zmanim Tuba. There is more than just those days of 14 and 15. It's only Yudalit and Tedvav. Because if it would have been Yudalit Tedvav, it could have said Yemei HaPurim HaEle Bizman or Bazman. Bazman. It says Bizmanehem, so we know Yemei HaPurim HaEle and Bizmanehem, there must be more days. I don't know how many more days. The Akati Mi Ba'ele. Okay, read it. Okay. And so why do we need it to be in the Rabbim? Why the Akati is from the plural. Mi Ba'ele. Why is the plural form required here? Okay? It's because Bizmano Shel Zeh Lo Kizmano Shel Zeh. What does that mean? Is that why can't we put Bazman? Because the Gemara is saying you can't put Bazman because Bazman sounds like one time. And the 14 can't read on the 15, the 15 can't read on the 14. So using the word Bizmanehem, even though you say Zman Simchatenu that time, it's still not enough to separate because they're really on both days. You said Zman Simchatenu. The holiday Sukkot is the full time. It's the full holiday thing. Here, the Zman of Purim is only 14 for that Saturday and 15 in that one. So Zman didn't work. So they had Zmanim.
They think only Dalet
or Tedvav. So
I think there's another added layer.
Let me hear.
Now you're talking about different dates, right?
Yeah.
Either it's Dalet Tedvav or Dalet Yudbet. But here there's also the concept of Bizmanim. It's the same set of criteria but applying to two different cases. You have
Continue.
The walled cities, the
villages and big cities.
So it could be plural also to reflect kind of the people you're talking to as opposed to the time it applies to. So that's why we need the plural form.
Very good. Say it again. I like it. Very good.
We need the plural form just because here you're talking about two different times, but you're talking about three different criteria that could fit those times. You're talking about three different audiences.
Very nice. So Zman would for sure be even problematic. You'd need Bizmanehem.
Sure.
You need Bizmanehem. Very good. Very nice. Very nice. Because you don't only have cities, you have the people of the cities that are also very good. Very nice. Very nice, Lior. And like I said, Zmano Shel Zeh, look, Zmano Shel Zeh. This time is not this time. A little side thing of Zman. We're going to talk a lot about Zman. This Gemara is going to talk about Zman and time, and our entire Yahadut is Zman. And you're going to see them arguing on not just the word right now. You're going to see them arguing on the suffixes of this word. If it's a mem, it's a nun, it's a yud and a k, and they're going to sit and argue now on Zman, Zmanim, all this stuff. Zmanim, the time, is the ikad. And the hachamim, they're going to sit and argue on a word on the time. But really, in essence, our entire religion is time. Everything is our time. You have to wake up from this time. You pray shaharit and tefillah from this time. You have shema from this time. You can't pray mincha before this time. If a guy wants to sit and come pray mincha right now, he can't. It's early in the morning. You want to pray arvit this time. Shema is only from sit until the alot. All these different criteria. Our entire religion is time. So when you see that the Gemara is going to sit and argue on something like this, I want you to know that the gift of mankind is Zman. It's only Zman. Because without the Zman, he has nothing. Without your time, what is it that God gives you? God gives everybody a little measure of time. It's like those little sand hourglasses. Nobody knows how much is in the sand hourglass. No one knows. And people live their life with assumptions and assuming I'm going to do and I'm going to do and I'm going to later on that. And the Borei Olam is saying, you don't know what's in the hourglass. And so the black, no milk, please, Shai. Yeah, and so thank you. And so this man is an ikar, and this Gemara, whenever we sit and argue on times, and like you have to do the Kirat Shema from here or time or read the Megillah. What's the most opportune to read the Megillah is to pray nitz hama, pray early in the morning and read it early in the morning versus reading it later 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. What's all these things? All these things are zman. All these things are zman, and so the zman is ikar. And the Hachamim are going to sit and argue on the word. They're trying to tell you something. If we're arguing on the word on zman, take our advice. Time is extreme importance. That's why on the holiday of Purim, I usually try to wake up nitz. I try to pray early in the morning. We read the Megillah early, and then we do like a meat seudah early in the morning for breakfast. I have meat. That's what I've done over the years. We started when Rabbi Mansour started doing it in Brooklyn. I did it, and then when I moved down here, I said, "Let's do it also." It's a great, finding a nitz minyan for.
One time, what is Moshe Nachum?
Moshe Nachum, yeah, it's great. The contractor, he's a great guy. And
in the morning, I remember the first time in my life that I ate meat.
Yeah, and you feel the kedusha. It's a different kedusha. The day has the day.
Was something special.
The day starts different when you start your morning off right, and I don't mean with a cup of Folgers coffee. I mean starting your day off right, starting. And Rav Yitzhak Modiano said it best. He said the pasuk says Boker udatem. Let me get to the pasuk. Boker udatem. He said that in the morning, the person who wakes up in the morning and the challenge of waking up in the morning determines the rest of his day. A lot of times, even when a person wakes up a little bit later and he prays in a minyan, he doesn't feel, he feels the kiddusha is not there. There's something of starting the day off right. And he says that's how a person's yirat shamayim. So it's unfortunate that sometimes we wake up late, or we'll go to a later minyan on a Sunday or during the week or something of that nature, or traveling. He said the true yirat shamayim is when a person wakes up against his will and starts his day, the right way. Like we live, Baruch Hashem, we live in a place that you're walking distance to men's mikveh. You can start the day off. We can read Tehillim, start the tefillah from the beginning. And this is what Hashem wants. Hashem doesn't want a guy walking in during hallelujahs of Pirkei de Zimra and starting the tefillah. Now, of course, it happens to be I read really slowly in the tefillah. Like my tefillah takes me 40 minutes more than the Hazan. So I end up starting before and I'm finishing later. And I learned this from another rabbi because I asked him when I saw him in Brooklyn. I don't want to say his name. And I saw him, he would pray way after. I said to him, "What are you saying?" He said, "I take my time also." I know, he said to me, "I take my time." So he was finishing the tefillah, like he was reading things way after the Hazan finished Alenu. And he said, "You have to pray from your heart. What is tefillah? Ma zuhi tefillah is avodah shebalev. It's speaking from your heart. So imagine a person sitting and he's focused on avodah shebalev, but he doesn't actually do it with his heart. That's why the Hachamim always say, Tov me'at be'kavanah me'harbe be'lo kavanah. Always do less with kavanah. And when I mean less, I don't mean has v'shalom the tefillah. The tefillah, you have to do the entire tefillah. When I mean less, is if you're going to sit and study Gemara or read Tehillim, and you have an option, I can finish now 5 dapim, or do 4 lines, but kind of get those 4 lines and really put my heart and mind into it. The God wants, and the Hachamim said, Lo alecha legmor melacha. Okay, and it's your job to do tov me'at be'kavanah me'harbe be'lo kavanah. And our mistake is that we're so excited about doing siyumim and finishing, is that that became the goal. The goal today is I got to finish it by this day. They start Masechet Rosh Hashanah. We started in Pesach. We're going to finish it by Rosh Hashanah. Now it's great to do these things, but I remind you of the story of the Gaon of Vilna. There was a student in Vilnius in Lithuania, and he was studying the yeshiva, and I believe he finished, it was Masechet Hudin at the time. Remember, with all these stories, these are stories, details, you can always, double check, and I'm not giving sources for stories, I only give sources for the Torah and Halakha. That's a story. He was studying Masechet Hudin, and Yossi, he went to the Gaon Vilna, and he tells the Gaon Vilna, I want to be tested on the Masechet. So the Gaon, smiled at him and told them, okay, go review your Masechet a few times before. He said, okay. He went back, and he told his Rebbe again, I want to go back to the Gaon Vilna. He said, okay, you know it well? I said, I know it well. He said, you reviewed it? I reviewed it. He goes, I know it perfect. I know it Ba'al Peh. He said, you know Ba'al Peh? He goes, yeah, let me see. He opened up the page, he said, no Ba'al Peh. It was unbelievable. He started one line, he finished the rest of the line. He said, very good. He said, just know when you go to the Gaon Vilna, be prepared. Okay. So he went to the Gaon Vilna, and the Gaon saw he has under his arm the Masechet Hudin. He's holding it nice and tight. And he tells him, you finished? He said, I finished. He said, you know it well? He said, I know it well. He said, okay. He said, how many times does Abaye and Rava argue in the Masechet? How many arguments? And the boy's mouth drops. And he realized that he has absolutely no idea how many times the word Abaye comes, how many times Rava is, and how many arguments there are. Now, of course, and the boy, obviously, he left, that was it, and he realized that he obviously didn't know the Gemara in the level or anywhere near the capacity, the way the Gaon Vilna assumes what a siyum is or what. And why am I trying to tell you this? Is that a lot of times I've learned with a lot of groups, and a lot of times I'm sitting learning with them, and I ask them, I'm like, all right, guys, how many arguments are on the page? And they sit in me, and they look cross-eyed. So I tell them, if we don't know this Gemara cold, and we don't know it well enough to say how many times or how many statements, or if I ask you when we finish and do the Siyum Bezat Hashem, I'm going to ask you, Yossi, how many statements are there in the entire Gemara? And you tell me, wow, I don't know, because as we learn, we're going to keep track on every page how many arguments there are, how many of them went into halachot, and how the halachot got chosen. We're doing it beyun. But the depth of this is the ikar. You see, what I'm trying to say here with this learning is that this is the only type of learning. The other learning is of the surface learning. Of course, people do it and they have to do it because they're limited in their time, but they're not limited in their depth of their learning. If a guy has an hour, he could go more into depth than he can to just cover ground. And I remember I was sitting one time with somebody who does the daf yomi, and we were discussing a halacha. So I started going in, I'm like, yeah, there's a source that came in from Hamavadja, he brings it from the Kaf Haim Palachi, and then the Kaf Haim Sofer, and I tied it into another rabbi. He's like, stop. I said, what? He said, can you explain to me the daf yomi? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do it hafif, just tell me. Mutar, asur, yes, no. I'm like, it's asur. He's like, okay, and he went on. But he didn't want no pilpul. He didn't want to know how I got to the conclusion or how this came about. Different levels. But what I tell you is that you start to feel a difference of the learning when every word you kind of evaluate. When you see something you didn't know, we opened up the pasuk, we checked it up, we looked at the background. And one of the secrets I found when you look at pasukim in the Gemara is that more often than not, the message is not in the words that they show you, but in the words that are not being shown in the Gemara that's part of the pasuk. We're going to see it a lot in Masechet Megillah, and I have a beautiful hidush coming up in a couple of the pages that we'll do it. So let's continue. Zmano shel zeh lo kizmano shel zeh. Okay, im ken, Yossi, im ken lema kera.
זמנו של זה לא כזמנו של זה, אם כן, למה קרא זמנם? מהי זמניהם? העתמינה כולה הוא.
Okay, explain. Im ken. The Gemara was saying, Zmano shel zeh lo kizmano shel zeh. That's why we need zmanehim. We need to have zmanehim because Zman alone would not be sufficient. Like Lior said, because you have different days, different cities, different people. Okay. Then the Gemara says, Im ken, if so, lema kera zmanan. Why don't the pasuk use zmanam? Remember, I showed you that the Megillah actually has the word zmanam in a different place. Remember, when we opened the Megillah, we're going to look that up right now. So it says lema kera zmanam. So why didn't the pasuk say zmanam? Let's take a look. The pasuk said le'ekayem et yemei haporim ha'eleh bizmanam. That, by the way, that fits now. Right? Bizmanam fits according to everything you said. Different cities, different people. Everything's good. 14, 15, 11, 12, 13. Everything's good. Bizmanam. So the Gemara says, Ma'izmanehim. Now, what's the difference between Zmanam and Zmanim? You have two extra letters, a Yud and a Hey.
Zmanehem it's more like it's their time. You're speaking to the group specifically. You're not speaking to the extra dates.
The extra dates. Oh, Zmanam would be their dates. Zmanehem.
It's your time. It's their time.
Zmanim Shelahim. That's what they say. Zmanim Shelahim, Zmanehem. Zmanam would be the plural of Zmanim. Zmana of times. Zmanehem is like you said. Zmanim Shelahim. Okay. Okay. Very nice. Oh, very good. Very nice. I like that. Let's take a look. There's a note on the bottom here. I want to read them. Let's read this art scroll note. Read it, Lior, on the bottom on 27.
Altogether, three teachings are implicit in this verse. At its most basic level, the verse could have said Bismanam. Bisman, easier. Now, by the way, we said before you continue, Bisman, we said doesn't work because you said different days, different times, different people. Good. Yeah. That would have sufficed to teach the Megillah written on the 14th, 15th of Adar. Yeah. A mem is added, Bismanam, in their time, to teach that walled and unwalled cities read at separate times. Good. Furthermore, an extra yud.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. Bismanam would be okay. In their time, what do you mean their time? The time of the 14, the time of the 15. Good. That sounds good. Furthermore,
an extra yud and hey are added, Bismanahim, their time, to teach that additional dates are appropriate for the readings of the Megillah, besides the 14 and 15 mentioned explicitly in the verse.
Very good. So the Gemara concludes Zmanehim, and it likes that Zmanehim fits really, really well. Remember we spoke yesterday how the entire Megillah doesn't have the name of God even once. The 7 names of God are not found even one time. We spoke about that, and then we also said that that's the Megillah is interesting. It's one of the 24 books of the Tanakh, the 5 of Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and you have 19 of the Nevi'im and Ketubim. And out of the 19, 18 of them are going to Genizah when Eliyahu and Navi Zachur Latov appears in the Mashiach. The only thing we're going to keep is the Megillah. And I mentioned to you the unbelievable fact that the only book in the entire the 24 books of the Tanakh that doesn't have the name of God is the book that we're going to keep. We mentioned, of course, that that's one of the secrets of life, is that more often than not, we don't understand God. We don't see Him. Sometimes I told you we're fortunate we get a glimpse. Oh, you know why this happened because of this, and you kind of get it. But more so than not, we don't see the hand of God in our life, and that's like the Megillah. But we know He's here. Like on the beginning of every amud of a well-written Megillah, it says Hamelech. If they do it on the 11th line, on that order, the Hamelech. Why? Or the 18th line. The Hamelech is telling us that there's a king in the world. Now we're in Zman of Rosh Hashanah, Hamelech HaKadosh, Hamelech HaMishpat. And sometimes we don't, unfortunately, see God. You know, certain things occur, but hopefully never to us. You know, when we look around the world and you see things that are clearly sometimes not justice or injustice, but they are justice. God knows what He's doing. And God has a full picture. And we anoint Him, HaMelech. And just like we anoint Him, HaMelech HaMishpat, HaMelech HaKadosh, in the Megillah we say HaMelech. And HaMelech over there is really referencing Achashverosh in the story. But Achashverosh was no king to us. He was a king to Paras and Madai. We only have HaMelech. And more so than not, just identifying that we have a king in the world and that we accept that we are the constituents of the king grants us a good judgment. Imagine a king who was around and he had people that he was the king of, and they don't even recognize that he exists. At least we spend our time during Masechet Teshuvah and the high holidays, we keep on saying HaMelech, HaMelech. And we remind ourselves, the king, He's the king. You know, just as a side note, I had a municipal ticket I had to deal with in Long Branch, New Jersey yesterday. And I'm in Miami. How did I do that? Well, very simple. The Long Branch Municipal Court is done on Zoom. So I had to do it on Zoom. So I was on Zoom, and there's 30 people in the Zoom room, and you pretty much are watching the court just like you would in a regular physical way. It's unbelievable. And I'm surprised they still have Zoom, but Gam Zoom Letova, because I didn't have to go and travel all the way to New Jersey. A simple thing. It took a couple of minutes. It ended up taking time because of having to wait. But what I noticed is that the entire thing was a simple nothing ticket that getting dismissed, not a big deal, maximum penalty, maybe $130. But I gotta tell you, when you're sitting in the room and there's 30, 40 people there and they call your name, and I'm on Zoom. I'm in my office. I'm not like I'm in the courtroom. Suddenly, you feel that in your heart, that little, like, oh my God, the judge is talking to me. And Your Honor, yes. That's in a stupid Zoom meeting for a municipal ticket that maximum penalty, maximum maybe $100, and 9 out of 10 times they dismiss it without even the guy showing up. They don't even, that doesn't even go for a bench warrant. That's nothing. Nothing happens with that. And I felt like this. And when he called my name, I'm like, oh, I was already seriously, like almost my heart, like for a second dropped. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, why did I even feel that? And I said this morning, goes to show you judgment in front of a king. It's no joke. We sometimes don't feel it. But, if you feel that in a little municipal ticket court, could you imagine what the judgment in front of the Borei Olam is? Where the Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, where the angels cannot look at the light, or you can't even call it a light because in Zulato, but what you would call a light. They can't even look, they can't even see. Imagine that's the judgment that everyone goes through on Rosh Hashanah. It's all done, guys. Rosh Hashanah is over. Your judgments are all finished. Now they're all in limbo. What we're doing now is we're trying to tell God, okay, I know that you already said what you had to say, and I don't even know what you said. I was in the courtroom, but I don't even know what the judgment was. What we're doing now is we're trying to show God we're realigning ourselves for this year. We're realigning. We're going to do different learning. We took upon ourselves different learning. We're learning the Gemara. We have Musar of Chafetz Haim. We have other things that we're doing, the Chok L'Yisrael in Jewish history and Mesilat Yesharim. But everyone takes upon themselves learning. Why? Because the learning is between you and the Borei Olam. That's how you're going to make your bond of the king. The way you identify how a king exists is by learning the text of his best constituents. So we look at the best constituents, like the Chafetz Haim. How did he see the Melech? And we see, how did he do it? He wrote a book. He told you how I did. I did through Lashon HaKodesh. Through, not Lashon Hara, Lashon HaKodesh. He prevented Lashon Hara. And then you had the Gemara. You had the rabbis of Ravina, Rav Asher. They gave it to you there where. And then you have the Ramchal, who wrote Mesilat Yesharim, Derech Hashem. And you had other Hachamim. They each gave you their antidote of how I got to the HaMelech. And you could take upon yourself. You take one, and I always tell everyone that I teach, get small books. Okay, your library is not a museum. I want to see books with notes in it. The books have to have little clips in them, folded dog ears on the pages. I want to see the pages coming apart because of the sweat that you had. Then I tell you, and I always say small books. Why the small book? Because not only can you take it anywhere, now it's easy to carry. You put it in your car, you go on a trip, you put it in your bag. It's not heavy. Get the soft cover, not the heavy cover. Why? What's the ikad of it? Is that we're in a battle. Our biggest battle today, for everybody, men, women, children, rabbis, secular, religious, observant, is what? Is this enemy right here. This enemy right here. This Yetzer Hara. This is our enemy. And he goes with everybody. The Yetzer Hara himself, if you were to ask him, when God created the Satan, the Malach HaMavet, when he created him, if he would have told him how successful he would have been with this, the Satan himself would have told you, nah, come on, God. You mean I can create a device that's going to be next to the Gedolim, that in the yeshiva, they're going to have, in the Kollel, you're going to have a cell phone. I'm going to be able to bring this in everywhere. He goes, yeah. He goes, when I created the TV, and people were going from a 24-inch to a 48-inch to a 65 to a 75, and then they went to the Shiur Hazon Ish to the 85-inch, and everyone started going bigger and bigger and bigger. The Satan said, okay, but that's in this guy's house. This guy's not. You ever see a guy walk around with an 85-inch TV screen when he goes around and he scrolls on it? No. But the Satan was able to figure this one out. And what did he do? This Yemach Shemo, the Satan, he's great. And what did he do? He put in there Sefaria. And he put in there Osara Chokhmah. And he put in there all that. He put the Kollel Lashon. And he put Torah anytime. And they're all good. These are all great things. Maybe not Sefaria. Sefaria is great for looking up, but another issue in Sefaria with a lot of New Testament texts over there. The person has to be very careful in Sefaria. There's a lot of new texts that are coming up. I love Sefaria. I've been using, but I've been noticing they're putting a lot of stuff in the New Testament. You have to be very careful. I called them out on it, and their response to me was, if you don't like it, build your own website.
That's what it said.
That's what the response to me was. If you don't like it, we'll give you the text for free. They're all text. We'll give it to you, but build your own. So I guess one of the financiers or the board has approved some New Testament text in Sepharia. But that's not the point. What I'm trying to tell you is that the Satan, he was so clever that he stuck in the device things that would force a person to have it. And especially now that they're trying to, or they're discussing removing fiat currency from circulation, where pretty much everything will be digital to some capacity or credit card to some capacity. These are things that we have to be aware of. So what do I tell people? I tell them, if this Satan is going to give you this device, you need something to annul it. You have yourself a little sefer. Get yourself mini sfarim that is the size of the book, size of the phone. You see, it's a little bit bigger, so you have a little bit more. You get like that. You get the same. And by doing that, now you keep it with you. You also have the sefer, and you're learning. And every time you want to waste a minute, instead of looking at your phone and opening it up 630 times a day, as Apple will kindly tell you with your screen time, you open up the book. And in the 3 minutes that you learn the page, you gain the olam haba with the zman versus that. And this is very, very important. Always get small books to carry along to study with you. Okay. My zmanehem shmat mina kullehu. So the Gemara ends up telling us that zmanehem is for each of the times. Okay. Yossi, continue. Ema zemanim tuva. Ask the question. Okay, what's the question? Yossi?
Why limit it to 11, 12, 13?
Excellent. The Gemara asks Ema Zemanim. You said Zemanim. You told me that Zmanehim is times. Why'd you limit it? Why'd you limit it only 2 days? Why'd you even limit it 5 days? Tell me
20.
The first half of the month, from Aleph Adar till the 15th, read it every single day. Ema Zemanim Tuba. Meaning, the Gemara says that you want to play that game. You don't want to use Zman. You don't use Zmanam. Then Zmanehim. Okay. So how'd you know that it was only 5? Tell me. How'd you come up with the 5? Listen.
You agree with the logic of more dates, but not those specific.
Yeah, I tell this, when I went to Yeshiva Flatbush High School, and when I went there, yeah, حتى what can I tell you, حتى أنا مسكين اليوم. Now, حسب shalom. I tell you one thing about Yeshiva Flatbush. They taught me how to read. They taught me how to understand the Hebrew, English. I had this teacher, Mrs. Levine, in eighth grade. I had Mrs. Levine. Wow, I don't know what has happened to her, but she taught me for 2 years Hebrew. They had a concept. It was a Zionist school, still is a Zionist school, Tziyuni, but it was Ivrit be'Ivrit. So the concept was, from the moment you walked into Mrs. Levine's class, she only spoke to you in Hebrew. Now, in the beginning, it was funny, okay, Boker tov, but then it started being like, oh my God, what'd you just say? And if you didn't know it, she threw you out of the class. And it started to get, and then she was, now in the beginning, I hated it. But when my father met her, my father was Israeli, he was a Sagan in the army. And when he met her, at the parent teacher, he's like, she's the one. He's like, she's the best teacher you have. She goes, she knows, yeah. And so he my mom and dad got in a great relationship with her. What ended up happening? She loved me. And she started giving me a lot of attention, and I started to learn with her more. And because of her, today I'm able to learn Gemara, I'm able to learn Humash, I'm able to learn Mefarshim, I'm able to research texts in ways that I go to rabbis and show them unbelievable Hiddushim. For one thing, because Yeshiva Flatbush and Mrs. Levine taught me Hebrew at this level. Now, that was at the time where half the school was Ashkenaz. Today, the whole school is Sfaradim. I don't know if they have any more Mrs. Levines anymore. I don't know if they have any, but I can just tell you, Hakarat HaTov, during Aseret Teshuvah, what she did for me was unbelievable. And I tell everybody, this is the Syrian custom. If you know how to read and understand the tefillot, you're 90% in the door. Because why are so many of the Israeli students so good in Gemara and in learning? They understand the language. And the ikad is, if you can get through that hump and you get to understand the language well.
Why they don't teach it in yeshiva? You can see in modern, Flatbush know better than, yeshiva that learning all day Gemara. So
Yeshiva Flatbush at the time, when they were established, they had a mission. They were very mission-oriented to getting the best teachers, the best educators, no matter what. And I'll tell you to what extent I observed this. They would bring teachers, even if it didn't agree with their hashkafa. What do I mean? At the time, in the 70s, they brought Rabbi Raful, Ham Abraham Raful, Rabbi Yosef Raful. They told Yeshiva Flatbush, these are the rabbis that opened up Ateret Torah. Rabbi Yosef, Rafu. How did that happen? Because at the time, when Yeshiva Flatbush was looking for teachers, they were looking for the best of the best. It was not relevant that their hashkafa was different than the school's hashkafa. It's because we're teaching them Gemara. And when I'm teaching Gemara, we need the best of the best. If I'm teaching Ivrit, I need an Israeli teacher from Israel that's Ivrit be'Ivrit. Now, could be, I didn't agree with everything in her hashkafa. But she had a product, and she taught Am Yisrael for I don't know how many years, how many people in Kollel today are able to pray and learn because of this zechut of Mrs. Levine. And that was Flatbush's thing. Flatbush's thing is we take the best. That changed when the school became majority Sfaradim and when the board became Sfaradi. I noticed that they were taking people that were young teachers, and they're all good, great teachers, but it lost what the mission of what it was when I was in school. I remember we had teachers like Rabbi Haramadi or Mr. I think Newman on philosophy. We had all these teachers that their entire life they were focused. Like we had this one teacher on philosophy. The guy was in his 60s. He would sit in lunchtime read philosophy. Like you don't see this stuff today anymore. You know, it doesn't exist today. Today it's a subject. They read it in Hebrew. They read it in English. They read a couple of mifashim. They hear an audio tape on YouTube or something, and that's it. The guy gives up the class. It was very different. These were people that were in their life. Their life was philosophy. This lady's teacher, this Miss Levine, her life was dikduk, and this had an effect on us till today. And why don't the yeshivot do it today? I can tell you, I sit on the board of one yeshiva that yeshivot are controlled as like boards and businesses. They're no longer out for the education of the student. It's unfortunate. It's very sad, but this is the system today. Does that mean that we abandon or leave the system? No, we don't. We stay in the system. We humble ourselves, and we teach them. I teach my kids privately. I teach Baruch Hashem. I teach you guys privately. I go to work in another half an hour. And I take from my time, and I do it, and I enjoy it, and I do it really because I want you guys to see another alternative. I want you to see something different because I know, and I noticed when I came down to the Surfside, you guys were lacking in so many of the things, and it caused me to be upset more so because my kids are growing up, and I don't want my kids to grow up in an environment where there's no learning. You see, my son was in YDE. He was like in 8th grade, 9th grade when we came here, and at night. They would all go to Sharet Zion. They studied at night for 2 hours under Rabbi Yedid. I come here, and there was not one group of learning at night. So Baruch Hashem, we were able to open one program in Magen David, then we opened the competing one in the Hechal Shalom, and then I hired the competing rabbi to another shul and the thing, and they were not thrilled. They were not thrilled at all. But I knew that without growing and building this competition amongst the shuls and rabbis themselves, they will do nothing. The edge only came through the competition. And it's not an easy. It wasn't easy, but I'm doing it because I actually enjoy it. So it didn't really bother me. You know, there was some form of entertainment in it, but teaching the boys at night. We did the Mishnah program when we started here, and Baruch Hashem, we had 20 to 30 boys every night learning Mishnah Ba'al Peh. And Baruch Hashem, this year we're gonna go back into it. So the Gemara asks a very good question. Ema zemanim tuva. If you're going to tell me zemanim, tell me a lot of times. Don't limit it by the days. Zemanehim. Read it. Okay, explain. Explain.
So from the word zemanehem, we learn.
Figure it out before I tell it to you. Zimanehim is the pasuk, is the word in the pasuk, right? Dumia means similar. Dizmanam. Go back. What's the question? Why is the Gemara talking? What's the question? The Gemara said, if you're going to say Zimanehim a lot of days, tell me it's tons of days. Why did you limit? Yeah. So the Gemara says, no. You can't just say a lot of days. Zimanehim, that it says, Dumia Dizmanam. It's similar to Zmanam. What does that mean, similar? Ma Zmanam Tere. Just like Zmanam. How do I know Zmanam Tere? How do I know that the plural of Zmanam is Tere? Lior, how do I know the plural of Zmanam is Tere? Yossi, how? No, but how do I know Zmanam, the word Zmanam is Tere? Tere means 2. But how do I know Rabim is 2, not 20?
Because in the Mishnah we said that it's Yudalet Vav, and now you're referring to using that same language to say you're adding 2 additional days. It has to be 1 for 1. No, it has to be. But
I'm asking you a simpler question. Okay. How do I know that the word Zimanam means 2 and not 3 or 4 or 5 or 8. How do I know? Because halakha, not halakha, the way that we learn is that zemanim, whenever you take a plural, what's the minimum of plurality? 2. So minimum of plurality, whenever you see a word plural, anywhere in your learning, anywhere in the Torah, Nevi'im, Ketubim, Halakha, everywhere, 2. It's always 2, unless you can prove to me more than 2.
Who said it's 2? It could be 3.
No, so very good.
Why you can go to the minimum?
I like it. Good. So because what's the minimum of plurality? Is 1 plural? 1 zerabim, echad zerabim, shnayim zerabim. Okay. Maha minimum shel rabim, shnayim. What's the minimum of a plural?
Who said here is a minimum?
So we don't know. We don't know.
It's at least 2. It could be 3, but it's definitely not 1.
We don't know. We don't know how many, but we do know.
Decide to say 2.
We don't decide. Remember, I told you this Gemara. Every line of the Gemara is not decisions; it's discussions.
The Gemara said here. The same Zmanam 2.
The Gemara is saying a lot of things. The Gemara is not giving you conclusive answers in anything it's saying. The Gemara is telling you. Remember, I told you the Gemara was not written in one course in one shot. This was hundreds of years of discussions, and we're looking at it from a bird's eye view. We're not looking at it from, hey, you said this, you said that. No, Gemara say whatever you want. I'm looking at it from the top, from the bird's eye view. I'm looking at it from here. They're saying, ikad. What's a rule in learning? Zmanam is minimum 2. It's got to be minimum. It could be 30. It could be 3. I don't know. But for the form of discussion, 1 is not plural, 2 is. So I know, ma zmanam tere, just like I know that a minimum of plural is 2, zmanam is 2, af zmanem tere. So too, the plurality of zmanehem is 2, unless you could tell me something else. Unless you're going to tell me, hey, it's not 2, it's really 3 because we have another proof. The Gemara is talking to you very clear, very straight. Zmanam is minimum 2, it could be more, but minimum 2. Zmanehem is minimum 2, could be more. So what does this tell me now? It tells me something very good. It tells me that we have 4 days. Because we have Zmanam, Zmanehem. We have 4, right? Good?
You're saying that the same laws apply to the first manam, apply to the extra
Zmanehem.
Yeah.
So the Gemara wants to say, the Gemara asks, it could be many. It was Ema Zemanim Tuba, a lot of days. Right? He said, no, it's really 4. It's Zmanam and Zmanehem. Now, the word Zmanam also comes up in the Megillah. We're gonna pull it up soon when we go back on this review. But let's continue. Ve'ema teresad utlesad. Read it, Yossi. Ve'ema teresad utlesad. What does that mean? Teresad is 12, and tlesad is 13. Okay? So the Gemara asks, if you said to me 2 days and 2 days, first the Mishnah is 5. It's not 2. It's not 2 and not 4. It's okay. So if we're gonna say the Zmanam is 2 days, 14, 15. Zmanehem 2 days. Say it's gonna be 12 and 13. But we have an issue. What about the Yud Aleph? How do we get that day? Yeah, okay, I agree with you, Gemara. 2 and 2 is Manam, 2 is Manahem 2, but we have 5, not 2, not 4. So how'd you get this?
Or even why you bet you Gimel? Why not you bet if you bet?
Okay. So very good. Oh, that's the Gemara's coming up with that question too. Okay, we'll say this last time and then we'll continue tomorrow. Kede Amad Dav Shemuel. Yes. Okay. What did Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzhak tell us? Rishbi. Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzhak. What did he tell us?
Day of assembly.
What did he say? Yud Gimel Zman Kilal Koli. Okay, 1 second. Let's take a step back. On the day of Yud Daled, what happened, Yossi, in the time of the Megillah? Yossi, what happened on the day of Yud Daled? Yud Daled was what day? Who celebrated on Yud Daled? Who celebrated Yud Daled? Ayarot Gedolot, the big city, right? All the cities celebrated. Who celebrated on Shushan? Mukafot Choma. Why did they celebrate on Shushan Purim? Remember when we read the Megillah? What happened on Shushan Purim? What did Esther ask?
Esther asked for another day.
Another day. Why? Why did she ask another day? Why did they kill him on the 14th? Give me one logical reason why Esther needed to request another 15th day. Very good. That in all the cities of Perazot, of the unwalled cities, when they went to defend themselves, the Jews, they were easy. They went into towns. They looked for the KKKs. They looked for the ones who were trying out to kill the Jewish people. And the king allowed them to go avenge any of the enemies. But what ended up happening is that some of the enemies went and ran into a walled city and they shut the wall down. They closed the door. and they went into Shushan. Now Shushan was the capital. I'm sure there were those that were out to get the Jewish people in the time of Purim that knew people in the government, that knew people in Shushan, and they went into the walled cities, and they did. And Esther said, "Listen, I know you did me great favor on the 14th, but I need one more day to go to Shushan to finish the job." And the king allowed it, and they killed, I think, like 500, 500 ish, right? ואת פרשנדתה, ואת דפון, ואת אספתה, ואת פורתה, ואת ארידאי, ואת אריזאי, ואת וייזתה, עשת בני המן, right? And then they went and they killed. Now, Yossi, this happened on Yud Dalet and Tetvav. What happened on Yud Gimel? What do we do every year on Yud Gimel? Every year on Yud Gimel Adar, what do? We have Tanit Esther. Tanit Esther is on Yud Gimel. Why is it on Yud Gimel? We don't fast Tanit Esther because that was the Tanit that Esther did. Because Tanit Esther did was actually on Pesach. It was 1 month later. It was on Yud Dalet, Tet Vav, and Tet Zayin, I believe. Those 3 days of Nisan was when she fasted. She didn't fast then. So why are we fasting on Yud Gimel Adar? What did I tell you the reason? Why do we fast on Yud Gimel? Because whenever Am Yisrael went out to a battle, they were fasting. You know. They say on the 1973, my father fought in the Yom Kippur War. It was Yom Kippur. It was a fast day. That was how they always fast. That's how they always went to battle. They didn't eat on the day of the battle. They did it for Rahamim from Borei Olam, that God will see. I'm not sitting there having ta'avot. I'm not sitting there having a Starbucks while he's out there on the battlefield. They would fast. Obviously, they would eat at night, and just as a side note, quite important. And I like reading the research papers, the medical papers on this. Fasting does make the mind sharper. It's a fact. Secondly, the only research that I've ever seen on rats, why do I say rats? Because rats have a very similar internal body like the human does. They're very similar. It's very interesting. A lot of things are tested on rats, not because they're rats, but because rats are quite similar to the human body, very, very similar, according to the research papers that I've seen. And when they test these rats on all different things, the only thing that they found that would give the rats longer life was eating less food. That was the only thing that they ever did, that by letting them fast. Now, I don't mean starving them. I mean letting them eat with intermittent fasting. It actually lengthened the lives of them. The ones that had the ability to eat what they wanted and eat improperly lived less. It's not coincidence. If you look even amongst our Chachamim, those that don't eat so much, you see how much energy, how much knowledge, how much power they have. It's almost like a trick. It's almost like to survive, you need to eat and drink. But the moment the guy goes over the line, it's detrimental. And the moment that he restricts it to what he really needs, it becomes a superpower to him. My brother-in-law took us once to see one of the Rebbes in Brooklyn. I forgot which Rebbe it was. Maybe the Skolner or Skolener. I don't remember, so don't quote me on it. And we went to visit the Rebbe, and it was like at 3:15 on Motzei Shabbat. That was when we had to see him. And he told me that the Rebbe only eats at night. He fasts the whole day, fasts 6 days a week. He only eats at night. And when he eats at night, he has like a little wheatgrass and drink, and he has a little pomegranate juice, some water, and then he fasts until the next day, every day. And then he told me on Shabbat, my brother-in-law saw him on Shabbat. On Shabbat, he eats Kisudat Shlomo HaMelech, and he eats. And I was one time walking home when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I walked home with a guy, I'll say his last name, Mr. Cohen. And I was walking home with him, with my father, and I saw Mr. Cohen. And Mr. Cohen told me, we're on Avenue S in East 14, and he said, I'm waiting for the Shabbat, I'm so hungry. So my father mentioned, I had something a couple of hours ago. She said, oh, you eat on Friday? So he tells my dad. He says, yeah, what do you mean? He goes, oh no, I do ta'anit on Fridays. Because I meant ta'anit of food, not ta'anit of drink. So my father's like, why? He's like, because you're going to the Shabbat with ta'avon. You go into a Shabbat after you didn't eat from the morning, you had just a coffee or a tea. You go in, now you took the ta'ava and you made kedusha out of it. You took it into the material product and you elevated it. You made that kedusha into that food. Now a guy ate a meal He went. He had all the maza, all fried kibbehs, all the food, the meat on 2 hours before Shabbat. Comes into Shabbat, doesn't even want to eat. Doesn't want to eat. It takes away from it. That ta'ava is going to the wrong place. You understand? And he channeled it properly. So there is a lot to the depth of not eating. And so, how does this tie into that? On Yud Gimel, what is Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak telling us? Yud Gimel Zman Kila Lakodhi. It was a time that everyone gathered together because they went to war. So on that day, Lior, that day you have to include part of the holiday. You don't need a pasuk for that. That was part of Purim. Yud Gimel was a day of a real battle that they fought. So in that case, the Gemara should need to spend. You don't need to spend extra time on it. Yud Dalet and Tetvav, the Gemara was very meforash. Yud Gimel, the Gemara was meforash. It was a battle. So if you have extra 2 days, give it for the other one. So okay, continue. Velo tzarich lerabuye. What does that mean? We don't need a source, a rabui, like an extra source from the Torah. Hachanami, read it. Hachanami Yud Gimel. So Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak is coming and saying, first the Gemara says, tell me it's a lot of days. It's Zmanim Tuva. We said no, it's Manam 2 days, Manahim 2 days. He said, okay, very good. So that's 14, 15, 12, 13. What about 11? The Gemara says, you only gave me 4. What's the 5th? Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak says, no, 1 minute. The 2 days that you have is 11 and 12. The 13 was already a fast day. And so that was Zman Kila Lakol. So you don't need a source for that. You don't need to give me another source because it's meforash. It's already the day of the battle. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. All right, Lior, shut the videos.